didn't meet his eyes. "I understand, sir. But there's a security protocol in place, and we can't override it." Carter kept his voice steady. "Security protocol? Yes, sir," she said, forcing another weak smile. "It's just policy." He didn't move. Didn't flinch. Policy? What policy? Behind him, the line grew longer. People shifted. Murmured. He felt their eyes on him. But instead of stepping aside, he squared. The airline staff wasn't backing down either. The air around the counter felt heavier. Conversations behind him began to quiet down. People were taking notice. A man in a crisp military uniform being denied his flight. This wasn't something you saw every day. Colonel Carter remained calm. His voice steady. He said, "Ma'am, I need to understand exactly what the issue is. This is a military assignment, not a personal trip. My documentation is valid." The agent hesitated again. Her eyes darted toward the other airline staff huddled at the back. Whispering? A supervisor. A man in his mid-50s. With a tired expression. Stepped forward. He adjusted his name tag. Folded his arms.
Especially when the
and
airline
laughed
issued a
at
vague and
Carter.
insincere
"I
apology. Instead of directly admitting the
exactly what the
mistake and
issue is.
expressing remorse,
This is
their
a
apology
military
was only
seemed
general,
uncomfortable.
with phrases like,
No.
"We apologize
Sir,
for the
this isn't
inconvenience,"
about
and
clearance.
"We are reviewing our
She
internal
said,
procedures."
her voice soft.
This did
We
not
just
calm
have to
public
follow
anger,
standard
but instead
protocol.
made him
A
feel
Marine,
that Tarmac Air was simply
standing
trying to
nearby,
avoid
let out
responsibility.
a sharp breath.
agent
These
hesitated
meaningless
again.
apologies
He
not
said,
only damaged
"I've
the
been
airline's
through
image,
security
but
1,000
also made
times.
many people
But
feel
I've
that they
never
did not
seen
care about
protocol
basic
stop a
human
soldier
values.
from
Whispering?
escorting
Gloria's
one of our
story has
supervisor.
become a testament
He
to the
folded
fact
his
that a
arms.
lack
In
of
his
sincerity and
mid-50s.
responsibility
His
can have
posture
far-reaching
firm.
consequences.
What is it?
Far beyond the
Murmurs
individual,
spread through the line.
Gloria
Adjusted his
Jefferson,
name.
People began
despite
pulling
becoming
out
an
their
icon of
phones.
strength and
Folded his arms.
determination,
Recording.
did not
The
seek
air
this
had
issued a
shifted.
vague and
Her
her story was not
apology.
about revenge,
Instead
nor
of
directly
directly
admitting a
admitting
mistake,
the
but
guilty
rather about
angels.
reminding
This
people
is
their
a
apology
military
was only a
assignment.
gesture, with phrases Gloria
like,
was not
"Glance
apologizing
sir,
for
this isn't
inconvenience,
about
and
clearance.
for those using
She
our
had
voice in
now
similar
her
situations.
voice soft.
This
This did not
Just
calm
have to
public
follow
anger,
standard
but
protocol.
instead made him
Carter
feel
again.
that Tarmac Air was
Wasted
fairly
moment
trying to
settled.
avoid
Let out a
responsibility.
sharp
Gloria
breath.
wanted these
People
meaningless
tried.
apologies.
He
True
muttered
power does
before
not need to be
walking off
loud
the
or
edge.
does
He
not
said,
only damage
"I've
the
been
airline,
through
it lies in
security
conduct.
1,000
Also made
times.
many people
Suddenly
feel
very
and the ability
evident
to
that
know
a
when to speak
computer
up
screen
about
while
others
others
were
were
loud and
soldiers.
rebellious.
He stood
Gloria's
tall,
journey has
shoulders
become a
shoulders
testament to
folded,
change the way an
staring
entire
straight
society
ahead.
views
He
what
wasn't
people truly
going
deserve.
anywhere.
Gloria
But neither
Jefferson's
was this
story is not
story
just
the
about
murmur
making
of
headlines
headlines
or
was
creating
no longer
conspiracy
just
sci
about
far-reaching
tired
consequences, but
expression.
also a
What is this
profound
photo?
lesson about power and
It was
dignity.
charged people
When her
in
story
line were no
became
longer
public,
just waiting
Gloria's
for their
silence
flights.
resonated more loudly than
They
any
were
loud
watching.
words or actions.
They were recording
She
the
did
Marine
something that
who
few
had
people
spoken
can
up
do,
earlier wasn't
create a
the
broad
only one
dialogue
who
about
looked
respect and
irritated.
responsibility.
A middle-aged
Without having
woman
to
in a
argue or
denim
call for
jacket,
attention.
clutching
In fact,
her purse,
Gloria did
shook
not
her
desire
head and
fame or
leaned
hot
toward
headlines.
her husband.
Her goal.
This isn't right. She muttered. A young man in a hoodie pulled out his phone. His fingers moving fast. He started typing. People were noticing. That was dangerous for the airline. Carter kept his expression unreadable. But inside, he was taking note of every detail. The supervisor hadn't returned. Yet this meant one of two things. Either he was scrambling for an excuse or waiting for the situation to fade. Neither was going to happen. Then, from behind him, a voice spoke. "Excuse me, sir." Carter turned his head slightly. A young woman, no older than 25, stood a few feet away, her phone in hand. Her eyes, uncertain yet determined, met his. I don't mean to intrude, but I just want to make sure I understand. They're not letting you board." Her voice was not loud, but the way she spoke, careful, deliberate, made people nearby pay closer attention. Carter exhaled, glancing at the agent behind the counter. "That's correct," the young woman blinked, as if she had expected a different answer. She hesitated for a brief moment, then nodded once and turned her phone screen toward him. "I'm live right now." she said. People need to see this. And just like that, the floodgates opened. Another man raised his phone. This is wrong, he said, shaking his head. This man is literally escorting a fallen soldier. A woman further back raised her voice. Hey, excuse me. She waved her hand toward the counter. Can someone explain why he's being denied? A few people shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure whether they should get involved. But the energy in the room had changed. What started as quiet murmurs had grown into something larger. Something the airline staff could no longer ignore. The agent behind the counter looked like she wanted to shrink into the floor. Her hands froze over the keyboard, her eyes flickering toward the cameras now aimed at her. The camera pointed in her direction. Then the Marine from earlier took a step forward. He was done playing nice. I've seen a lot of things in my time, he said, his voice steady but firm. But I never thought I'd see the day when an American soldier, especially one escorting the remains of a brother in arms, was treated like this. The terminal grew eerily quiet. Even the usual airport announcements over the speakers seemed distant, muted. The only sound was the recording beeps from phones, capturing every second of what was unfolding. The Marine squared his shoulders. This is a disgrace. The agent swallowed hard. Her fingers trembled as she clicked at her keyboard again. The supervisor was still nowhere to be seen. Passengers whispered. A baby fussed in its stroller. But the mother, instead of soothing the child, stared at her phone, her face twisted in disgust. Then, from somewhere in the back of the line, a man muttered, "It's already trending." Carter didn't move. He didn't need to. The world was watching now. The tension in the terminal was thick. The supervisor was still gone. The airline staff stood in awkward silence. Phones were out, recording, tweeting, streaming, and then, like a spark hitting dry grass, it spread. The young man in the hoodie, still glued to his phone, let out a low whistle. Damn. This is everywhere now. Carter didn't react. He knew better than to celebrate too soon. But from the way the agent behind the counter stiffened, he could tell she knew it too. The woman in the denim jacket checked her phone, her eyes wide. Oh my God, she whispered to her husband. It's already on Facebook. The older Marine grunted, pulling out his own phone. They don't even know what kind of storm they've just started. The Marine grunted, his words carrying a weight. Then, as if on cue, the airport's loudspeaker crackled to life. Attention passengers. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Flight 237 to Phoenix will be delayed. We apologize for any inconvenience. A few groans rippled through the crowd. But most people weren't even listening. Their attention was on something far more significant. The uniformed soldier being refused his flight while carrying out his duty a minute later. A young woman near the windows gasped, "He's on Twitter," she said, turning her phone screen toward the crowd. People leaned in to see a tweet appeared, written in bold capital letters. They just denied a black U.S. Army colonel his flight while escorting the remains of a fallen soldier. This is how we treat our heroes. #let them fly. Underneath, the numbers were climbing. Retweets, comments, likes. The story was spreading like wildfire. Then another tweet popped up. This one from a veteran advocacy group. "We are aware of the disgraceful incident happening at airport name. Our soldiers deserve better. Expect action." The crowd murmured. The realization was sinking in. The airline had officially lost control of the narrative. The agent behind the counter, still frozen in place, let out a shaky breath. She turned and hurried toward the back, disappearing behind a frosted glass door. She wasn't coming back with an answer. She was coming back with damage control. Carter adjusted his hat. He had been in situations like this before, not at an airport. Not like this. but in places where powerful people suddenly realized they had made the wrong enemy. Enemy? No, he wasn't smiling. He wasn't gloating. At the end of the day, this wasn't about him. It was about Private First Class Jason Reynolds, the young man waiting to return home. And right now, that mission was still incomplete. The crowd wasn't just watching anymore. They were waiting. The terminal felt different now. Charged. Expectant. Then, finally, the supervisor returned. But he wasn't alone. A second man walked beside him. This one was dressed in a sleek navy suit. His airline ID clipped neatly to his pocket. His walk was brisk, controlled, like someone used to putting out fires. He stopped just short of the counter, scanning the scene. His eyes darted between Carter, the Marine, and the rows of phones still recording. He cleared his throat. "Colonel, I apologize for the miscommunication. There seems to have been an error with our system. But we're working to get you on your flight as soon as possible." Miscommunication. Carter had been in the military long enough to understand what that word truly meant. It meant they'd been caught. It meant, fix this before it costs us too much. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he let the moment hang. Watching, the airline representative shifted slightly under the weight of the silence. "I see," Carter said, his voice calm and measured. "An error, you said?" "Yes, sir," the man replied. "A regrettable mistake. We assure you, it was not intentional." A few people in the crowd scoffed. The Marine shook his head. The airline representative adjusted his tie. Clearly uncomfortable. "We'd like to personally escort you to the gate now." "Colonel, first-class accommodations." "Of course, first class." As if that were the point. Carter looked past the man toward the counter, where the agent still stood. She looked anywhere but at him. The same agent who had smiled at him stiffly when she denied his flight. The same one who had never bothered to check before saying no. Carter exhaled slowly. "I appreciate the urgency," he said, his voice steady. "But I need to clarify something." The representative nodded quickly. "Of course." Carter's voice remained even. His words deliberate. "Even if no one recorded this, if no one spoke up, would I still be standing here?" A beat of silence. The representative swallowed hard. "Sir, you don't need to answer," Carter interrupted. He already knew. Everyone in the terminal knew. Another moment of silence passed. Then, from the crowd, a woman murmured, "He's right." The representative tried to smooth over the tension again. "Sir, we sincerely apologize. We both know," Carter said, his tone firm. "This isn't about an apology. It's about accountability." The crowd murmured in agreement. People weren't just angry anymore. They were disappointed. The representative knew he was losing control. He straightened his posture, adopting a more authoritative stance. "Colonel, let us get you on your flight now." But before Carter could respond, a new voice cut through. "Sir." A younger man in an airport security uniform appeared at the side of the counter. He held out a phone toward the airline representative. His expression was tight. "I think you should see this." The representative frowned. Taking the phone, he scrolled. His face paled. The Marine crossed his arms. "What? Something wrong?" The representative didn't answer. But Carter already knew. The backlash had already begun. The story had officially exploded beyond the airport. A major news outlet had picked it up. The headline was blunt: U.S. Army colonel denied flight while escorting fallen soldier. Airline scrambles for answers below it. A video clip played, footage from the terminal. The representative handed the phone back to the young man, inhaling sharply before turning to Carter. "We deeply regret this situation," the representative said, his voice now thinner, forced. We'd like to issue a public statement clarifying. Carter cut him off. The public already knows the truth. Silence. The representative pressed his lips together. Carter looked at the crowd. At the phone still recording. He turned back to the representative. I don't need first class. I don't need special treatment. I need respect. And so does the soldier I'm escorting. Another murmur ran through the crowd. The representative gave a stiff nod. As if that was all he could do now. Understood. Sir. The Marine let out a small approving grunt. Carter adjusted his hat. Now. Let me finish this mission. But the consequences for the airline had just begun. The airline had lost control of the situation. The story was spreading. Faster than they could contain it. The terminal now felt more like a press conference. Phones still recorded. Passengers still watched. Then, something unexpected happened. A man in a dark blue suit walked into the scene. He had the unmistakable posture of someone with real authority. He wasn't from the airline. He wasn't airport security. He was military. The room shifted. People moved aside instinctively as the man approached. His ID badge flashed briefly. As he stepped up to Carter, he extended his hand. Colonel, the man said firmly, I'm Major Thomas Beckett, Department of the Army. We've been informed of the situation. Carter shook his hand. His grip was strong. He didn't need to ask how the major had arrived so quickly. The military doesn't hesitate when it comes to its own. Beckett turned to the airline representative. His voice was crisp. We are handling this now. Colonel Carter and the remains of Private First Class Reynolds will not be flying commercial. The representative blinked. Sir, we were just about to. You were just about to cover your tracks. Beckett interrupted. His tone was polite, but it carried weight. He glanced at Carter. Sir, the Pentagon has arranged for a private military flight. Your transport is waiting. A murmur rippled through the crowd. People exchanged glances. The U.S. military had stepped in. Carter exhaled. Not out of relief. He didn't need saving, but because this mission was finally back on course. He gave a small nod. Understood. Major. Beckett's gaze flicked toward the airline representative one last time. This will be addressed. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Carter turned back to the Marine, who had been watching the entire exchange with satisfaction. Appreciate you. Brother. Carter said. The Marine tipped his head. We look out for our own. Carter gave the room one last glance. The people who had spoken up. The ones who had refused to let this slide. The ones who had made sure this story was heard. He adjusted his uniform, squared his shoulders, and walked out, not toward the gate, but toward something bigger for the airline. The fallout was just beginning. They thought the situation would fade. A few apologies. A press release. Maybe a statement from their CEO. Damage control. But the public wasn't letting this go. News networks had already picked it up. The story spread. Veterans organizations released statements condemning the airline's actions. Politicians weighed in, demanding accountability. Then came the financial hit. By the end of the week, the airline's stock had dropped. A trending hashtag calling for a boycott gained traction. Customers flooded social media with demands for answers. And then, the final blow, a lawsuit. A coalition of military advocacy groups filed a formal complaint against the airline for discrimination and failure to uphold service member protections under pressure. The airline CEO made a public appearance. He called it a regrettable misunderstanding and announced that the employees involved had been placed on administrative leave. Too little, too late. Meanwhile, Colonel Carter continued his mission. He escorted Private First Class Jason Reynolds home, standing by as the young soldier's family received him for the last time. Carter didn't need the headlines. He didn't need the attention. He needed respect. And that was the real fight. Respect shouldn't be conditional. It shouldn't require a viral video or public outrage. It should be the standard. The people at that airport, the Marine, the passengers who spoke up, the ones who refused to stay silent, proved something important. When people stand together, justice has nowhere to hide. If you believe in accountability, if you believe in honoring those who serve, let your voice be heard. Because silence lets things like